Hello, and welcome back to the League of Europe podcast. It's been a little break. We've been gone for a little bit, but hopefully we're back now on a regular basis like before. And as always, I'm glad to say I've got Daka or Dan alongside me. Want to give a quick hello?
Yes, thank you very much, Gary. Been a little while, a few weeks off, but great to be back here yet again. And we've got another great guest on for today as well. So yet again, for what I believe is the fifth podcast we're recording. I might be wrong on that. Really looking forward to getting this one started again.
Yeah, like you say, we have a great guest. I mean, it's the fifth podcast. We're starting to scrape the barrel a little bit. So our next guest is really down at the back of our list. But nonetheless, it's like to say welcome to Killer Blue or Jake, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for that lukewarm introduction. I went from a great guest to scraping the barrel in about 5 seconds, but given that I'm fifth out of about 120, I'll take it.
40,
Yeah.
but you know.
Yeah, 40 people that volunteered, so we are sort of scraping the barrel with you, in a sense.
I'm only an eighth of the way down, though. That's not too bad.
Okay,
I'm in
okay.
like the top 12%.
Oh, right, look, we don't care about your maths. We'll just get straight into it, as always. First question I have for you. Not many people are going to know this, especially the new guys, but of course, you were like the godfather, the founder of League of Europe. You helped create it basically after PRL was ending. I just want to know, like, what made you take up that challenge, and like what effort had to go into making the league? Because I remember personally, like, the org team back then, we were like, okay, we want to keep the league going, but we don't know how, and we're all like twiddling our toes really. But you were the one to step up and really do all the groundwork. What made you do that, and what was the process going through all that?
The short and shady answer is that I didn't trust anyone else to do it as well as I thought I could.
Wow.
And so it begins.
And also, because we had 3 divisions, I think, for the last season of PRL. So we had 60 full-time drivers, more or less, who had become homeless. And for a lot of them, myself included, PRL was our main league. And I felt like we had something very strong that had been neglected by the PRL leadership at large, which is, I could go into a whole podcast about the problems with that. But yeah, I didn't want to leave people without a Saturday night league, because there wasn't, I don't think there was another dominant Saturday night league on PS4, and I just had many ideas that I wanted to implement and things I wanted to do, and that I pushed hard on, that we'd always get, you know this, Gary, because you were an orc in the final days of PRL, we got so much pushback from Aaron and Jerome. They just told us to keep it as it was, in this very bland, generic kind of sense, and there was no opportunity for us to stylize ourselves or individualize. And I saw it as an opportunity to take. We already had like a pool of 60 drivers ready to go. We could just make it exactly what we wanted, and I thought it was an opportunity too good to turn down. And we were all in agreement as orgs that we wanted to carry it on. So it's just a case of someone saying, "Get you together and get it all sorted."
And like you were the one that rolled up the sleeves and were like, all right, boys, I'm going to carry you through all this. What did you have to do to make this what it is today, basically?
I mean, they were quite simple things. It was really a checklist of, well, we need a name, we need a logo, we need a platform to communicate on. It wasn't perhaps as complicated as someone might have imagined to set up a league from scratch. Because even though we had the drivers, everything else needed doing. But I think it was quite. I remember it being quite painless setting up LOE. I found it quite enjoyable. There are few things that, you know me, I pushed hard on. One of which was to completely revamp the point system.
I think we compromised in the end on that one.
Yeah, that's my favourite. That was my favourite topic as an org. Can we change the points? And I would ask every single season, and I'd always get told no. But yeah, it was quite easy setting up LOE. I don't know if that's underselling it a little bit, but I don't remember there being too many problems. Didn't feel like there was too much work involved.
Fair. And why did you decide not to continue as an org once you built it? And of all names, why did you pick League of Europe? Couldn't have picked anything better, no? There's no other better
To
names.
to the first point, why did I stop? I was listening to the Lorikeet podcast recently, and you asked him, or he's touched on, does being an org affect your enjoyment of the league? And he said unequivocally no. I completely disagree and say unequivocally yes. Being an org is to the detriment of my enjoyment of the league, because I felt, even though it's not that way in reality, when you're the org and when you're the big bad chief org, you have to babysit the league. If there's disputes or people argue or people don't like a decision or want something explained, it comes down to you and you feel obligated to explain it, or if something goes wrong, you're the one that has to sort it out or calm it down. And it was grating on me. I did not enjoy that aspect of the work. With LOE now, I do the graphics and I love it, and I just do the graphics and I drive. But the sort of human management aspect of it, I never enjoyed. And I'd always felt that my time as an org was to the detriment of my performance as a driver. Because when I became an org, I was co-org the season I won the title, and then the season after that I stepped up to being chief org, PRL, and my performance never really recovered from that. It's been a downhill ever since, and I've just enjoyed it more since I've stopped. Had I carried on being an org, I reckon I would have been one of those orgs that stops driving, because it just got to a point where it wasn't enjoyable. I had to pick one or the other, and I'd rather drive than I would organise, because I knew that the league was in good hands with the people who were in charge of it at the time.
We're gonna, of course, that's a great thing to touch on. We're also gonna, you mentioned as well the driving aspect of it, but we're gonna talk about, because you've been league racing for God knows how long, probably longer than I've been alive. 6 years, yeah, pretty much. But what made you want to get into league racing? What kind of enticed you towards joining it, and how did you get into it? How did you go to commit to it and start to enjoy it from the start?
Boy, do I have a fun story here. So
yes, love this.
When on F1 2010 I raced with a group of people by accident. I found myself friends with and racing with these people every night, or so many times a week. But it wasn't a league, it was just a group of people that would go on and race together. And one of them knew a guy, I can't remember his name, I think it was like Slater or something, and my friend was like, oh, this guy Slater's setting up this league, we're going to be racing every Saturday night, do you want to join? And this was F1 2011 on Xbox 360, so I was 13 at this point, and this was my first experience with league racing. And at the time I also had crippling voice / self / telephone anxiety, so I did not talk on the mic. I was paranoid of talking on a microphone on a headset, but I did have it plugged in, so I just used the lie of, oh, my mic's broken. And I told them I was 13, which I probably shouldn't have done at one point. And so I was just like this kind of weird silent kid that people got on with, but I think people didn't really trust me because I didn't talk, and everyone else spoke, and I just sat there in silence. And then when the season finished, I got uncomfortable because people were talking about introducing a rule where you have to talk on the mic. I don't know why they thought this was a good rule, but they were going to introduce a rule where you had to have your headset on just in case, to say if you were lapping someone or if you were coming in the pits or there was a crash, to say sorry. Don't know why you needed that, but that was their plan. And I was like, no, I can't do this. So I came up with a rubbish excuse saying, I've got to concentrate on my GCSEs.
We've all been there.
Yeah. To which, I mean, I wasn't even year 11, I was in year 10 at this point, but I said that, and someone was like, oh, it's suspicious that Vader, as my name was then, leaving just as we introduce a rule where, say, you've got to be on mics. Interesting. And I just left the league. And then 2 weeks later, I got a message from someone who I was closest to in the league saying, people are very suspicious, wondering if there's something else going on with you leaving. And the implication of his messages was that people thought I'm not actually 13, I'm like a 50-year-old pervert or something, and I was going to get exposed when I had to turn my mic on, and that's why I left, because I wasn't actually 13. And that
Oh my
scarred me
God.
for about 3 years. I still have nightmares about my experience in that league.
Jesus.
So I abruptly left. I won 2 races though, so I was only there for 1 season. But it put me off league racing completely because it felt very intrusive and
Yeah.
pervasive and invading. I had to have a mic. But then when it came around to F1 2015 on PS4, I just literally Googled F1 League PS4, and PRL was like the second or third one, and I just signed up.
How?
And the thing I said, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And the thing I said when I signed up, because I messaged Ibo, was that said, I don't have a mic. Would that be okay? And I've not left. I've been in the league continuously since. Although I kind of left the last season of PRL, or the first season of LOE, I dropped in and out. But yeah, I've stuck around since. But thankfully, PRL was a much better experience than that other league, which I think was called Speed Freaks. I think they collapsed 1 season later, so they couldn't.
They
hold
were a
together
bunch
now.
of freaks anyway, that's for sure.
When I asked that question, I have to be honest, I was not expecting that elaborate a story, but thanks for that anyway. But obviously, you mentioned you've been league racing for a long time. I'm interested to know what changes have you seen, not only in like the game, but also the community in like different leagues throughout. You've stayed for most of your league racing time within PRL/LOE, but what have you seen throughout the wider community that's changed over the time that you've been league racing?
I'd say the most obvious thing is it's got bigger. When I won the title, we were 1 division with 10, 11 drivers a week. And you know, there's steady growth of the league, but you can feel the community's increased in size as well. And also, I'd say it's got younger, because when I raced, it was mainly people like when I was on F1 2015, I was 16 and I was one of the youngest. Most of the people, like Neo was there, Ibo was there, June was there. People who were in their early 20s or older. Now it feels like at 22, I'm very much one of the older hands, regardless of experience, and that most of the bulk of the community is, 15, 16, 17. And also, the other thing that's changed is it's become very Twitter-based now, which is something I try to stay away from. But yeah, I'd say it's increased in scope and scale, and decreased in age, and at times it's decreased in maturity. But I think I wouldn't say it's. I say the main thing is it's got bigger. It feels like it's a lot noisier now than it used to be, or maybe I just pay more attention to it now. I'm not sure.
Do you prefer back then when it was like the 1 division and felt a lot closer with everyone compared to now when there's a lot more people and you might not know everyone, and it's just, and like I said, like the younger age group, they just do lack a little bit more maturity than what you might have had 3 or 4 years ago when you were starting off. Do you think, like, if you had to pick, like, what do you think would you prefer to be, like, now or go back?
Oh, I prefer it now. It has much more of a community sense. Back then, with PlayStation messages, it was you turned up, you raced, you forgot about it, and now there's a whole ecosystem that exists outside of the races, because that LOE's helped me find people to play COD with, play FIFA with, play Red Dead Redemption with. There's a whole sort of microverse of people to game with, not just play F1 with. So I definitely prefer it now. That said, it does also feel a little less personal, a little less homely than it did back then, because there's so many people. But I'm not sure if that's a community thing or if that's just an LOE becoming more dominant thing. I don't know, but I definitely prefer it now.
Yeah, fair. But yeah, I just want to say next question. It's like you were just saying there like a few minutes ago, like how you struggled when you were younger, not able to talk on the mic or not wanting to talk on the mic with anxiety and stuff. Now, of course, you commentate now over Division 3. So obviously something's changed. Like, if you don't mind, like, what made you overcome that anxiety and not being able to talk on the mic, and from not talking onto the mic to commentating on a race on a weekly basis in front of a fair number of viewers every week? Like, what's changed, and like what made you decide to do that?
Going to university would I'd say would be the thing that has changed me most in life. Because before university, I was incredibly introverted. I had no fashion sense. I had no grooming sense. I was just a spotted, speckled nerd. And I feel like thank you. Going to university, it's completely like broadened my awareness of myself and other people, and you realise that the things you're uptight about and shy about and nervous about when you're younger don't really matter, because everyone has to go through them, and you realise that the world's not as, what's the word? The world doesn't care about you as much as you care about it. Like, if you make a mistake, or if you're talking about something and you slip up and say the wrong word or something, people don't care. It doesn't really matter, and it's also, on the flip side, it's just given me more independence as well. I feel like I'm in a job interview here, saying, well, how have you grown? How have you grown since you started university? But yeah, university is the biggest influence, I'd say. It's made me a lot more self-confident and self-reliant, and it's made me happier and more comfortable talking to people. Commentary doesn't bother me at all. I don't know why, because I would never imagine myself to be the kind of person to do it, but I do it and I really enjoy it. And so far this season, I'm enjoying it almost as much as the race in itself. It's because D3 is a cracking division, so when you're doing it, you kind of forget that you're actually providing a service to people. You're just enjoying watching a race and talking about it with a friend. So I don't see it as the broadcasting aspect. It's just fun to talk about.
Yeah.
I think I'm actually very I think we're very similar on that front, actually, because I think I can draw a lot of comparisons between, because I'm quite an introverted person in the real world. I've not been to uni or anything as of yet, but I find that very interesting, because I never had an issue like you, even just being like on stage, even doing like a play for school or whatever, or just commentating. There's different types of people, which I always find to be very intriguing, because I'm someone that's maybe not quite as confident, like just generally socially, but I can just perform in front of people. I guess that's kind of similar to what you went through like earlier on in your life, just that kind of, that your confidence is drawn from different areas, which I think is really fascinating. But I guess gonna change topic just a little bit. We'll keep on league racing. You've been league racing for quite a while. Just a very standard question, I guess. What would you say your favourite thing about league racing is, and what's kind of kept you going for this amount of time?
The competitive aspect of it. I love F1, and I love the competition of F1, and when you're playing it offline or just in unranked lobbies, it's hard to find that incentive to play. It doesn't provide the competitive aspect that you love when you watch Formula 1 on TV. League racing is a platform for you to play the game in a semi-competitive sphere alongside the same people each week, as if you're part of a Formula 1 season. So definitely the competitive aspect. The community was always secondary, but I'd say now I enjoy the community aspect of it more than the competitive. I came for the competitive side, but I've ended up staying for the community side.
Yeah, that's a shame that you've decided to stay, to be honest.
Likewise, Gary.
Yeah, same. But like you said, your favourite. Like, you were an orc obviously before. You didn't like it really at the end anyway. What was your least favourite thing about being an orc, or just league racing in general? Like, what really ticks you off?
You saying what's my least favourite part being an orc? Given what we said before we start recording, this question feels like bait.
I'm building you up for the big question.
I said what I don't like about being an orc is the management aspect, but also within the organiser group.
Here we go.
Drum roll, please.
No, but people are very impassioned about league racing when they're organising, and the difference of opinion that you have with people, particularly when it can be a bit like talking to a brick wall, but also being a brick wall because you don't want to change your opinion either. Because if you stand down, then you know the other person's going to get their way. Because usually these quite like diametrically opposed viewpoints, and it's not like there's a middle ground. It's either we do it this way or we do it that way. So you never want to back down, and it can get into, it's not bitter arguments, but it can become quite contentious and heated. And there was a particular organizer at the end of PRL who was incredibly disagreeable. And I mean that literally, in the sense that they disagreed with whatever ideas someone would put forward, but they would rarely put forward ideas of their own. They would just knock others down, and they were very much in favour of the status quo and not innovating and not sustaining change. And my fellow organisers of the time will tell you that the relationship between this org and the other organiser fell apart quite rapidly, to the point that it became a full-on mutiny, and we just said, "Be gone, thought," and took control. But I think that was a major instance. But there's always, Gary, there's always like lots of little disagreements, and where some people might be able to just bat them off and say whatever. It didn't get to be personally, but it just became an irritation that you have these ideas of things you want to do. And of course, you never get your own way all the time in life. That's part of living. But it's annoying when you put forward stuff and it's constantly knocked down. I come back to my thing about the point system, or I had an idea where I said we should mix up teams and we could do 4 driver teams or something, and which it was more thought out than that. But you have these little sparks of inspiration, and this particular org, and sometimes others as well, would just say, "Nah, leave it as it is, leave it as it is," and it just wears you down. I wanted to be more radical and innovative as an organizer, and between that and I said sometimes the toxicity in chats and stuff with just the drivers, it wore me down, and I'd had enough. Really.
Yeah, I was like quickly. I want to say I agree with everything you said. I think right now, I've said this many times, but like this is the best org team I've been in. I think I've been in org for 3 years, maybe a little bit more, but 3 years. And back then, towards the end of the period, that was the worst, because I don't think anyone really cared anymore. Because, like you were saying, like no one really
in the final days of PRL, when I was an org, I would go. I'd have weeks where I was engaged with it and interested, and weeks where I was disengaged with it, where I would just ignore the WhatsApp group, and I would look on it and I'd see 600, 500 messages. And that as well, because niggly little things would have, hours worth of discussion over.
Yeah.
And it just felt sort of petty a little bit for me. I know that's the thing. Maybe I just didn't have the mindset for it. I had a moment actually in end of season 3 where I found renewed motivation, where I wanted to come back to being an org, and then it lasted about a few weeks, and then I was like, no, I can't do that again. There was something that happened, and I was just like, I don't want to deal with that. I'm happy making my little graphics.
Every time something goes wrong, you just turn around to me and go, "And this is why I'm not an org anymore, Gary." And I'm like, I wish I was in your position. But we'll move away from the org stuff a little bit, and we'll just focus a little bit more on your actual day-to-day. Like you were saying, like you were in university. So like, what are you studying, or what did you're still studying? Aren't you? You're doing your masters right now, aren't you? If I'm not mistaken.
I am. I'm doing a masters in psychology.
What's that?
Because the thing any like website or university or sixth form or school will tell you is that master's degrees are the most intense year of your life. They are horrible, they are horrendous. It is non-stop work. It's like a full-time job. You're doing 40-hour weeks, maybe more, trying to do your thesis, your dissertation, doing all your essays, your projects, your assignments. My master's year has been the most chilled year of education I've had since year 6. I have about 5 pieces of work assignments this year, and I don't have any exams because you don't get them at master's level, not for this master's anyway. And it's just very chilled. I do about an hour's work a day on average. Most days I do no work at all because there's nothing to do. It's been way more relaxed than undergraduate. It's disappointing though, because you're doing it remotely now,
Yeah.
And you'll know Daka doing online lessons that it's incredibly hard to stay motivated and engaged when you're so far removed from that sort of academic environment. It's very hard. Like I have lectures and seminars each week that don't relate to any examinable content, so they're not going to be assessed in any way. So attendance is really for the sake of it. And what is the point of me opening my laptop in my hoodie with my eyes looking like I'm stoned because I've just got out of bed, stare at the screen for half an hour, hoping I don't get asked a question, and then put my laptop away and go back to sleep? Like, what's the point of that? And so my university experience has been very upside down this year, but so I'd love to say that university has changed my life and it's been the most amazing experience. Masters is awful. Undergraduate was much more fun and much more enjoyable experience because it actually felt challenging and it pushed me and I grew from it. Now I'm just at home doing nothing.
But what made you want to study sociology, and is that something you want to
psychology, Gary? Psychology, Gary.
Sorry,
don't insult me.
Sorry. A part where you see yourself continuing down in the future.
So I do psychology because I didn't know what else to do, which is a good enough reason for anyone to do anything, I think, in life.
Yeah.
If you don't know what to do, just do whatever presents itself, really. I wanted to do physics at university. I was adamant I wanted to be a physicist or an astronomer because I was obsessed with space, because I was a basic little nerd. So I did at A-level, I picked physics, maths, English language and psychology, which was a weird mix in itself. And then 2 weeks into A-level, I had, for the first entire 2 weeks of A-level, I had like daily breakdowns where I was like, I can't do this, it's too much pressure, because to do physics at uni you had to get like A stars or A's in physics and maths. I was like, it's too much pressure to put on myself, I can't do it. And I just cried day after day, and I just dropped physics and replaced it with media studies, which is about as crunching gear change as you can get academically. At which point, I obviously, physics became out because I dropped it. So my options were really do maths at uni, or do psychology or English, or something more general like geography that didn't necessarily require a geography A-level. And I picked psychology because it was interesting. Maths was kind of out because I didn't do further maths in the end. So I just picked psychology in hopes it would turn out well, not really know where it was going to go. And it is because I applied for some graduate schemes last year. Awful, don't recommend those, never apply for them. They're the most intense, awful, humiliating thing you can ever do. But I came around to applying for teacher training. And I got 2 offers from that, so in the autumn I'm going to start a 1-year training course. I feel like we're going over the same ground we went over with Larkin here, to train to be a teacher, whether that will be a psychology teacher or something different, like maths, for example. Because the thing about teaching is you go into it believing that you're going to do psychology, be a psychology teacher or be a geography teacher. The reality of it is you end up teaching whatever they need you to teach. So you'll just apply for a school and they'll be like, oh, we need you to teach. You can teach maths if that's what you want to teach, but we also need you to teach ICT, PE, and a bit of art, maybe some RE, because we don't have an RE teacher. Like the guy interviewing me said, you're welcome to do it to get psychology placements, but the odds are you're not going to be a psychology teacher because he trained as a geography teacher and he'd never taught geography a day in his life.
Wow.
So my expectations are mixed, but I think teaching as a profession itself, regardless of the subject, is quite rewarding. So I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, I've had a strange path to what I've ended up doing and how I've got there.
You haven't taken the scenic route. Well, you've taken the scenic route, sorry, anyway, to get where you want to go.
I've taken the route of just doing what's easiest at the time because I didn't want to find a job, so I was like, I'll be a teacher, because I found job hunting too anxiety inducing and depressing. Like it was not good for my mental health, so I was like, I'll just be a teacher because it sounds good.
Sounds good.
We revisit this podcast in 2 years. I'll let you know how it turned out.
Eloise gonna be a home of teachers very soon. It looks like it. Got you and Larkin now.
Just start an LOE brand school.
sake. Get Packer in as well. He knows a few
Now you're
things
going to be a
about
home
teaching.
economics teacher, aren't you, Gary? So
Maybe, yeah.
so LOE would just be headed. LOE F1, you and Larkin would just be teachers as head teachers.
We know how to keep people in order, clearly. But yeah, we'll move on. Yeah, you do the graphics for Twitter.
I do.
You do them very well, I have to say.
I do them
they're
very
alright.
well, minus the
Minus-
5 mistakes that get filtered out by Waluigi
Yeah.
each week.
That always must be sick of you. But
I'm sick of it. I'm sick of him in a good way. In a good way.
But yeah, you do them, and you do them really well. Like, what made you want to do the graphics, and how did you teach? You taught yourself. How did you teach yourself to make them like that?
I started doing them because my sister's a graphic designer, but I don't think that necessarily had any bearing on it. Because she does quite arty, floral things, and this is much more sort of corporate kind of design. But I just find the word I always use. I find it very cathartic. It's a stress reliever making graphics. I don't know why I find it very peaceful. But it's like any kind of art, really. Like if you like drawing or if you like crochet, or it's just very relaxing. You doing it on a computer screen rather than doing it on wool or paper. Doing them like the way I do them, it's just become through sort of process of sort of iterative as I've got better and got more experience with it. Like what each season when I come up with a suite of graphics, I'll just mess about and try different things until I find something I'm happy with, and then I'll send it into the media chat and I'll get about a ream of things to change as feedback, and then I'll do that, and then sort of through this iterative feedback and then change process, you kind of get to the final design, and I try to always do them the same way, so there's like nice continuity because I have this strong sense of brand identity I want to be carried through LOE. I say that as if I'm the head of graphics. I'm not. Car Cannon is, but I just find it very pleasing and satisfying to make graphics that are all uniform and neat, and I don't know, I feel like I'm really exposing myself as a bit of a nerd in this podcast, but
Mate, we all knew that anyway. It's fine.
I don't know, the short answer is I just find it fun. It's fun.
And well, on the topic of graphics, I have to ask you about Killer Instincts, of course, your weekly Twitter predictions type thing. Were you planning at first to curse every single nearly every single driver that you end up going forward picking? What was the inspiration towards starting that? Where did the idea come from, and where did the Keller Curse originate from?
I just thought it would be a bit of a meme to do some weekly predictions and then be rubbish at it. I thought so I was trying to come up with ideas for things to go on the Twitter and then suggest them to Larkin and Carcannon and see what they thought. And I thought it'd be fun if I do weekly predictions. We've never really done a prediction thing. Back in PRL, we used to have pre-race questions, some of which would be predictions that all the drivers would answer.
Oh, you say all the drivers would answer?
All the drivers would try to get them to answer, but they never would. But I thought it would just be fun to do something that's prediction based because we've never really done it with LOE, and if they're like kind of personalised, then I can put my own sort of quirky take on it. I wasn't expecting it. I mean, I tried to be sort of semi-satirical and humorous with it, but I didn't expect people to pay attention to it in the way they have. I thought it would just get 1 or 2 likes on the Twitter and no one would ever mention it, but it's become a bit of a weekly thing, like who's going to get cursed. And now obviously Jav has jumped on that bandwagon as well with I think the next week they're called Jav's Judgments, but I think for next week he wants it to be called Jav's Jinxes, so he's going full in on the curse theme. I'm adamant that I've never written them to curse people apart from Canada. I predicted Packer because I was annoyed he didn't apologise to Larkin, taking him out at Silverstone. So that's the only time I've deliberately tried to curse him, and it worked because Matt got that win on penalties, and Packer was consigned to second, as he will be for the entire season. But
I mean,
barring that, I don't.
Every week you've picked
Well,
every week.
he cursed himself by saying he's going to walk it in 2 races. He'll be back up into D4. I just predict who I think's going to do well, bar in
Yeah.
D5. I never predicted to curse people.
Yeah.
So people can make their own conclusions from my predictions. But I've always been sincere with them.
I mean,
So if people do badly because of it, then that's not my fault. That's their fault for taking it.
I mean, your first week it was a massacre. I think everyone you predicted for Austria, I think one person got points out of all 5 divisions. Like you, that's how the curse started.
I didn't intend to do that, but I'm
Yeah.
proud of it nonetheless.
Oh my god. But yeah, I don't know if we got anything else to talk about. To be honest, I don't know. Dan, do you have any more questions? I don't know.
No, not really. I think we've squeezed this out for just about long enough.
Yeah, I think so. Actually, Dan mentioned this before the podcast, and he hasn't asked.
Oh
it,
yes.
so-
Yes.
so I'm gonna ask. Of course, not everyone's gonna know this, but you have that infamous picture of you with the parrot. Yeah.
Lorikeet, but yeah, call it a parrot.
What's the story with Lorikeet? What's his name? Not Lorikeet.
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 Lorikeet. So, in 2019, I mean, it's not that exciting story, but I work in a zoo. Some people might know this, some people might not. But that's my summer job. I work in a zoo. So I had free tickets for there because I'll work all summer, and then you get free tickets to give to family and friends, whatever. And I after my last shift, I went there September 2019 with my girlfriend. And they have a little, they call it Rainbow Landings. It's a little walk-through area where it's full of lorikeets. You can get a little pot of nectar or honey or bird feed of some kind, and it's very attractive to them, so they'll come and get it. And if you hold it, you get them all over your arms and over your head and whatnot. And my head, don't know if anyone's seen pictures of me, but you might notice my hair's quite ripe to be turned into a bird's nest. So I just walked through with some of the little pot of honey stuff, and one just came and landed on my head. And I never take good selfies, but I just whipped my phone out first try, and I got like a beautiful picture, mainly beautiful because I'm in it, but a beautiful picture with the lorikeet on my head. And then I got another one last year because at the end, as an end of season treat, at the end of our shift, we got to go and feed the lorikeets again. So I got a part 2 picture. But yeah, that's the story of the lorikeet. I wish I had one of my girlfriend with the bird on her head, but clearly her hair wasn't as attractive to the birds as my massive mop is.
Sick. Well, I mean, I can sleep happy now knowing the story, to be honest, now behind the picture.
I mean, I have more pictures, behind the scenes pictures of me with lorikeets on my arm and head, if you're interested.
I'm very interested.
Please DM me every single one of them.
Slide into my DMs.
Oh, of course. You could use them as the thumbnail for this podcast.
Yeah. That takes too much effort from me. No. I mean, if you make it, then yeah, I'd be tempted.
Oh no.
But yeah, I'll let Dan take us away with the last question that we always end on every week.
So our traditional last question for you, Mr. Killer Blue, is going to be: what era of F1 would you like to race in, and why would you like to race in it?
I feel like everyone will just say the era that they first watched or grew up with. I would say the era of Formula One that's most iconic in my mind is 2003 to 2005, because the Ferrari, McLaren, Williams with Schumacher, Barrichello, other Schumacher, Montoya, Coulthard, Raikkonen, that is just iconic to me. And then having the green Jaguar and the blue Petronas Sauber, because I had the 2004 season review F1 DVD for Christmas, and I remember I just watched it non-stop. So the 2004 season is the most iconic and well remembered in my head, even though I was only 6 years old when it happened. So definitely 2004. And the F2004 is such a beautiful car. I think it's one of the most gorgeous F1 cars of all time. So. And it was the year Button was really good at BAR. And Alonso and Trulli had that Renault. It's just a great year. I don't know. It's just maybe it's not for other people, but for me, everything about it is just iconic.
Yeah.
And as
Because of
a
that
and as a
DVD.
follow up, would you fancy yourself for the championship against Michael Schumacher in those cars?
Well, I did once go karting as an 8-year-old, and I got told, for someone who's never been here before, you're really quick. My family was too broke to ever follow that up, but so on that basis, from what that staff member who was probably earning minimum wage at that local go-kart track said, I could take Schumacher on in a Ferrari, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't win Division 2 Season 5 Russia, did he?
Well,
Yeah.
there's
I had
reasons
to
for that,
sneak that in because Gary's here, but
Oh, we don't care. We don't care. All right, let's wrap this
I
up.
do.
Nah, yeah. No comment on my behalf. I don't want to speak. But yeah, it's been a pleasure having you on, Jake. It's been a very insightful and enjoyable podcast. I hope everyone else enjoys it as much as I have listening to you. And yeah, Dan, any final words before we go?
No, we actually need to finish up right now for reasons. So yeah.
Reasons unknown to me or anyone else. But yeah, thank you guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. And till the next one, bye.